Have you ever wondered what you would do if your life changed in just a heartbeat? When tragedy strikes without warning, and everything you thought was certain suddenly hangs in the balance. Today's story will take you on an emotional journey that proves resilience isn't just a human trait. It's woven into the very soul of our four-legged companions. 3 years ago, on a rain-soaked evening, a German shepherd was discovered on the side of a deserted road. Blood-soaked fur, labored breathing, one leg mangled beyond recognition. Most would have driven by, assuming it was too late. But Daniel Peterson wasn't most people. "I still remember the look in his eyes," Daniel recalls, his voice breaking slightly as he speaks. There was this fight in them, this unwillingness to give up despite everything. I couldn't just leave him there. What happened in the next 6 hours would become a race against time that veterinarians still discuss today. Dr. Jonathan Phillips, who performed the emergency surgery, had never seen such severe trauma in his 15 years of practice. When they brought him in, I honestly didn't think he would survive the night, Dr. Phillips admits. The damage wasn't just to his leg, he had internal bleeding, and his vitals were crashing. I told Daniel to prepare for the worst. But sometimes, against all odds, life has other plans. As Spirit, that's what Daniel named him, lay on that operating table, something extraordinary happened that the medical team couldn't explain. His heart rate stabilized just as they were about to lose him. It was as if some invisible force was giving him the strength to hold on. The surgery lasted nearly 4 hours. And when the decision came to amputate the leg to save his life, Daniel made the call without hesitation. "I promised him on that roadside that I would do whatever it took," he recalls. And somehow, I think he understood that. But the real story isn't the accident, or even the miraculous surgery. What happened in the months that followed? That's where the true magic lies. Hit that like button and subscribe to Eternal Bonds right now. We celebrate second chances and the powerful bond between humans and animals with every story we share. Spirit didn't just recover. He thrived in ways nobody could have predicted. The journey wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of frustration, and days when pain seemed overwhelming. Stephanie, Daniel's sister, who moved in to help during those critical first weeks, documented every small victory. "The first time he stood up, we all cried," Stephanie shares. Not tears of pity, but tears of pure amazement. It wasn't just that he could stand. It was the determination in his eyes. Like he was saying, "Watch what I can do next." And what came next defied every expectation the veterinary team had set. But before I tell you about the moment that changed everything, the moment that has since inspired thousands of other rescue stories across the country, I need to ask, have you ever witnessed an animal overcome impossible odds? Have you seen that unique combination of vulnerability and unstoppable determination? What Spirit did next wasn't just unexpected. It completely transformed how we understand canine resilience and adaptation. His story is proof that what we perceive as limitations are often just opportunities for extraordinary courage to shine through. Share your own stories of animal resilience in the comments below. Your experiences might give hope to someone facing similar challenges with their own pets. Day 43 of Spirit's recovery began like any other. The morning sun filtered through Daniel's kitchen window as he prepared Spirit's medication, carefully measuring the pain relievers that had become a part of their daily ritual. But something felt different that morning. Spirit, usually still curled in his bed at this hour, had managed to stand up and make his way to the kitchen without any assistance. "Hey, buddy," Daniel whispered, his voice catching with surprise. "Look at you, getting around all by yourself." What happened next would become the moment that Daniel, Stephanie, and Dr. Phillips would recount countless times in the years to come. Spirit, who had been cautious and hesitant in his movements since the amputation, suddenly took off across the kitchen floor with unexpected speed and confidence. He didn't just walk, he ran. With his ears perked up and his remaining front paw striking the ground with purpose, Spirit raced around the kitchen island twice before stopping in front of Daniel, his tail wagging with what could only be described as pride. "I couldn't believe my eyes," Daniel recalls, the emotion still evident in his voice years later. It wasn't just that he could move quickly, it was the joy on his face. For the first time since the accident, I saw him truly present in his body, not defined by what he had lost. Stephanie, who had been documenting Spirit's recovery journey in a journal, rushed to grab her camera. I knew we were witnessing something profound, she explains. It wasn't just physical healing anymore. It was Spirit reclaiming his identity as a dog, not just as a survivor. The scientific explanation for this breakthrough came from Dr. Ann Phillips during Spirit's checkup the following week. What we witnessed was the culmination of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself, he explains. German Shepherds are incredibly intelligent and adaptable. Spirit's brain had completely remapped his understanding of movement, balance, and spatial awareness. But the transformation extended beyond the physical. The trauma of the accident had left Spirit with emotional scars as deep as his physical ones. For weeks, he would startle at sudden movements or flinch when strangers approached his left side, where his missing limb had once been. Daniel had been working patiently, using gentle exposure therapy techniques recommended by an animal behaviorist. The day before his breakthrough run, we had a difficult session, Daniel remembers. We were working on Spirit's fear of moving vehicles, understandably, given how we found him. He froze completely, his body trembling, when a truck passed by during our short walk in the front yard. I thought we'd taken steps backward. That night, something shifted in Spirit's demeanor. Stephanie noticed him standing by the window for nearly an hour, watching cars pass by, his body tense but not panicking. It was like he was studying them, processing his fear rather than being consumed by it, she says. What animal behaviorists call emotional resilience seemed to be developing in perfect tandem with his physical adaptation. Dr. Phillips explains this phenomenon. Animals, especially dogs, have an inherent capacity to live in the present moment. They don't ruminate on their losses or traumas the way humans might. Once Spirit began to feel physically capable again, his emotional healing accelerated dramatically. The weeks following day 43 brought a cascade of milestones. Spirit learned to navigate stairs, at first awkwardly, then with increasing grace. He figured out how to balance while lifting his remaining front leg to mark territory during walks, a seemingly small achievement that brought tears to Daniel's eyes the first time he witnessed it. These weren't just physical victories, Daniel emphasizes. Each new skill he mastered was a declaration. This is who I am now, and I can still be whole. Perhaps most remarkable was Spirit's developing relationship with other dogs. 6 weeks after the surgery, Daniel nervously arranged a controlled meeting with his neighbor's gentle Labrador, unsure how Spirit would react or if the other dog would be confused by Spirit's different gait and appearance. I was worried about rejection, Daniel admits. Would other dogs sense his difference and exclude him? Would Spirit himself feel self-conscious? If dogs can feel such things. Those fears dissolved within minutes. The lab approached cautiously at first, then engaged Spirit in play with no hesitation. Rather than being hampered by his status, Spirit adapted his playstyle, using his lower center of gravity to his advantage when wrestling. He couldn't run quite as fast in pursuit games, but he compensated with quick turns that his four-legged playmate couldn't match. That's when I realized something profound about resilience, Stephanie shares. It's not just about overcoming limitations, it's about discovering new strengths you never knew you had. By the 2-month mark, Spirit's physical recovery had plateaued. He had reached what would be his new normal in terms of mobility and function. But his psychological evolution continued to unfold in unexpected ways. The most striking change was his heightened sensitivity to human emotions. While many dogs naturally respond to their owner's feelings, Spirit developed an almost uncanny ability to detect shifts in Daniel's emotional state. There was one evening when I received some difficult news about a family member, Daniel recalls. I hadn't said anything out loud, just read the message on my phone. Within seconds, Spirit was by my side, pressing his body against my legs, something he had started doing whenever he sensed distress. He stayed there, solid and present, until my breathing slowed and my shoulders relaxed. This behavior became consistent. Whether it was stress, sadness, or even physical pain, Spirit seemed to perceive the change in Daniel's emotional state before Daniel himself had fully processed it. Research has suggested that dogs can detect subtle changes in our scent, heart rate, and even micro-expressions that we aren't consciously aware of making. I started wondering if this extraordinary empathy was connected to his own experience of vulnerability, Daniel says. It was as if, having been broken himself, he could recognize brokenness in others with heightened clarity. Dr. Phillips wasn't surprised by this development. Many dogs who have experienced trauma develop an incredible ability to read human emotions, he explained during Spirit's 3-month checkup. It's as if their survival once depended on anticipating human moods and behaviors. What makes Spirit remarkable is that he's channeled this heightened sensitivity into connection rather than fear. The veterinary clinic where Spirit received his care had begun to take notice of his extraordinary progress. What had started as a routine case study in amputation recovery was evolving into something the staff found remarkable. They asked if Daniel would consider bringing Spirit in for a special purpose. "We have a new rescue coming in tomorrow," Dr. Phillips explained during a phone call one evening. "A young border collie found abandoned near the highway. She's physically okay, but completely shut down. Emotionally, won't make eye contact, refuses to eat when humans are present. We've seen Spirit's calming effect on other animals here during his checkups. Would you consider bringing him in? Sometimes other dogs can reach traumatized animals in ways humans simply cannot." Daniel agreed without hesitation. The next morning, they arrived at the clinic where they were led to a quiet room. In the corner lay a black and white border collie, her body pressed against the wall, eyes vacant and distant. "This is Lucy," Dr. Phillips said softly. "She's been here for 3 days and hasn't eaten much. We're concerned." What happened next surprised everyone. Spirit, who had become increasingly confident, approached Lucy slowly. Instead of the direct greeting most dogs would offer, he laid down about 5 feet away from her, his body positioned sideways, a non-threatening posture that canine behaviorists recognize as calming communication. He didn't stare at her or make any demands. He simply existed in her space, occasionally glancing her way before looking away. For 20 minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, almost imperceptibly, Lucy's rigid body began to relax. Her eyes, which had been fixed on the wall, occasionally darted towards Spirit. When a technician brought in food, Lucy remained frozen. But then, Spirit did something remarkable. He limped over to the bowl, sniffed it, then backed away, as if assuring her it was safe. "He's showing her it's okay to eat," whispered Stephanie, who had joined them for this visit. "He's teaching her to trust again." By the 3rd visit to Lucy, the transformation was unmistakable. The once shut-down border collie would now approach Spirit with a tentative wag, and under his watchful presence, she began to accept gentle touches from Dr. Phillips and his staff. It wasn't just Lucy who was transforming. Spirit seemed to have found a purpose in these interactions, carrying himself with a new sense of confidence. It's not uncommon for rescue dogs to help rehabilitate other animals, Dr. Phillips explained. But Spirit has an unusual gift. He seems to understand exactly what approach each dog needs, when to give space, when to engage. It's as if his own journey through trauma has given him a roadmap for guiding others. Yes, word of Spirit's gift spread quickly through the veterinary community. By the 5-month mark of his recovery, he had helped facilitate breakthroughs with 6 different rescue dogs, each with varying degrees of trauma and fear. The local animal rescue organization even gave him a special recognition and honorary therapy dog in training vest that he wore with what could only be described as pride during his visits. These experiences had a profound effect on Spirit himself. What Daniel and Stephanie noticed most was how his confidence seemed to grow with each dog he helped. It was as if each successful connection reinforced his own healing. "I've seen this phenomenon before," explained a canine behaviorist who came to observe Spirit's work with a particularly challenging case, a Rottweiler who had been used in fighting and was now aggressive toward other dogs. Dogs who become helpers often experience accelerated healing themselves. It gives them purpose, and purpose is powerful medicine for trauma survivors, whether human or canine. The Rottweiler case proved to be Spirit's most challenging yet. The dog, named Titan, had been rescued from a fighting ring where he'd been used as a bait dog. Smaller dogs used to train fighting dogs without fighting back. Despite his history, rescue workers saw something in his eyes that suggested he could be rehabilitated with the right approach. The first meeting was tense. Titan's body language was rigid, his eyes tracking Spirit's every move from behind the safety of a partial barrier. Spirit, sensing the danger, kept his distance, but maintained a calm, non-threatening posture. "Spirit seems to understand the concept of consent," remarked the behaviorist. "He never forces interaction. He waits to be invited into another dog's space." Over 4 carefully supervised sessions, something remarkable happened. Titan's aggressive displays diminished, replaced by cautious curiosity. By the 5th session, the barrier was removed, and while the humans held their breath, the 2 dogs engaged in appropriate greeting behaviors. Spirit keeping his movements slow and predictable, Titan responding with increasingly relaxed body language. "What we're witnessing," said the behaviorist, "is one survivor showing another that there's a path forward." Spirit isn't just communicating with these dogs, he's showing them a living example of healing. Rescue animals helping other rescue animals demonstrates the ripple effect of compassion. Share your observations about animal empathy in the comments below. Your insights bring our community closer and help others understand the healing power of animal connections. This new chapter in Spirit's life brought an unexpected benefit to Daniel as well. The depression he'd been battling since losing his job 6 months before finding Spirit had lifted. Watching Spirit transform from victim to healer gave Daniel a renewed sense of purpose. "I was in a dark place when I found him," Daniel admitted to Stephanie one evening after returning from the clinic. "I kept thinking about how I saved his life that night on the road. But the truth is, he's saved mine too." As Spirit's first anniversary of his rescue approached, Daniel received a call that would open yet another unexpected door. A local children's hospital had heard about Spirit's work with traumatized dogs and wondered if he might visit some of their long-term pediatric patients. Children who had experienced trauma or were facing lengthy medical treatments often connected deeply with animals who had overcome their own challenges. "We've seen remarkable breakthroughs when children interact with animals who have visible differences or disabilities," explained the hospital's child life specialist. "It helps them feel less alone in their struggles. And from what I've heard about Spirit's temperament, he might be perfect for this work." The idea both thrilled and terrified Daniel. Spirit had proven himself remarkably intuitive with traumatized dogs, but children were an entirely different challenge. Would Spirit understand the fragility of sick children? Would the hospital environment, with its strange smells, bright lights, and beeping machines trigger memories of his own medical trauma? "I think it's worth trying," Stephanie encouraged. "You've seen how he responds to vulnerability. It's like he has a 6th sense about who needs him most." After discussing it thoroughly with Dr. Phillips and the hospital's animal therapy coordinator, Daniel agreed to a carefully supervised first visit. Spirit underwent additional temperament testing and health screenings to ensure he was appropriate for the program, and Daniel received special training on how to handle potential challenges in the hospital setting. The day of their first visit arrived with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Daniel had brushed Spirit's coat until it gleamed, attached his special therapy dog vest, and practiced basic commands to ensure perfect behavior. As they walked through the hospital's sliding doors, he felt Spirit press closer to his side, not out of fear, but seemingly out of understanding that this was important work. "Our first patient today is Emma," the child life specialist explained in a hushed voice as they approached a room in the oncology ward. "She's 8 years old, undergoing her 3rd round of chemotherapy. She hasn't been responding well to treatment recently, and her doctors are concerned about her declining spirit. She used to be talkative and engaged, but lately she's withdrawn completely." Daniel nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "What should we expect?" "Just follow her lead," the specialist advised. "Sometimes just being present is enough." When they entered Emma's room, Daniel immediately noticed the stillness. Unlike most children's hospital rooms, with colorful decorations and toys, Emma's space felt muted, as if joy itself had been drained away. The little girl lay curled on her side, facing away from the door, her small body nearly lost in the hospital bed. "Emma," the specialist said gently, "remember I told you about the special visitor coming today? This is Spirit and his friend Daniel." The girl didn't respond or turn around. Daniel felt his heart sink, wondering if they should leave, when something remarkable happened. Spirit, who had been standing politely at Daniel's side, gently tugged at his leash. Daniel, trusting Spirit's instincts, loosened his grip slightly. Spirit walked slowly to the opposite side of the bed, the side Emma was facing, and sat down so that his head was at the same level as the girl's. He didn't push for attention or make any demands. He simply existed in her space, his gentle brown eyes meeting hers. For nearly 5 minutes, no one spoke. Then, almost imperceptibly, Emma's small hand moved from under the blanket and reached towards Spirit's muzzle. Spirit remained perfectly still as her fingers lightly touched his nose. Emma's eyes, dulled from medication and illness, showed the first flicker of interest. "Did it hurt?" "I think it did. Very much," Daniel said honestly. "But he was very brave. And now he doesn't seem to mind at all." Emma studied Spirit for another moment. Does he feel sorry for himself? The question, so direct and profound from someone so young, caught Daniel off guard. "No," he said after a moment. "I don't think he ever wastes time feeling sorry for himself. He's too busy enjoying each day." A tiny smile, just the barest curve of her lips, appeared on Emma's face. Smart dog. That first visit lasted only 15 minutes, hospital protocol for new therapy animals, but its impact was immediate. The oncology department called the next day, reporting that Emma had asked when that dog would return. She had also eaten her full breakfast for the first time in weeks. Spirit's hospital visits quickly became a regular part of their routine. What started as once weekly visits soon became twice weekly, with special requests coming from different departments. Spirit seemed to intuitively understand what each child needed, sitting quietly beside those who needed calm presence, playing gently with those who needed cheering up, or simply laying his head on the bed of those too weak to interact. The transformation in many of the children was remarkable. Parents reported that their children looked forward to Spirit's visits, using them as motivation to comply with difficult treatments. "If Spirit can be brave, I can be brave getting my medicine," became a common refrain. Perhaps most profound was Spirit's impact on the children in the trauma unit, those recovering from accidents, abuse, or violence. Many of these children, distrustful of adults after their experiences, found safety in Spirit's non-judgmental presence. One such child was Theo, a 6-year-old boy who hadn't spoken since being pulled from the wreckage of a car accident that had taken his mother's life 3 weeks earlier. During Spirit's first visit, the therapy team had modest hopes. Perhaps Theo might make eye contact or show some interest in the dog. Instead, after spending several minutes carefully touching Spirit's missing limb, Theo looked up at Daniel and asked in a rusty voice, "Does he miss his leg?" The question was the first indication that Theo was processing his own loss. Through subsequent visits with Spirit, Theo began to express his grief, asking questions about how Spirit had adjusted to his new normal questions that were clearly about his own struggle to adjust to life without his mother. As Spirit's reputation grew within the hospital, Daniel found himself increasingly drawn into the world of animal-assisted therapy. He began reading research on the subject, consulting with veterinary behaviorists, and connecting with other handlers. Dr. Phillips, noticing Daniel's growing interest, suggested he consider formal certification in animal-assisted interventions. "You have a natural talent for this work," the veterinarian observed during one of Spirit's checkups. "And Spirit is exceptional. He has an emotional intelligence I've rarely seen in any dog, let alone one with his history of trauma." Daniel found himself at a crossroads. His former career in marketing had never felt particularly meaningful, but this work with Spirit filled him with purpose. The temporary job he'd taken after being laid off was just that, temporary. Could he actually build a new career around animal-assisted therapy? The answer came unexpectedly during a hospital visit 6 months into their volunteer work. Daniel and Spirit had been asked to visit the hospital's staff break room, an unusual request, but one they were happy to fulfill. When they arrived, they found the hospital's chief of pediatrics, several doctors, nurses, and the volunteer coordinator waiting for them. "Daniel, Spirit," the chief began, smiling warmly. "We've asked you here because we want to discuss something important with you. The impact you two have had on our patients has been nothing short of remarkable. We've been tracking outcomes, and children who receive regular visits from Spirit are showing measurable improvements in pain management, treatment compliance, and overall emotional well-being." Daniel felt a surge of pride as he glanced down at Spirit, who sat calmly at his side. "We'd like to propose something," the chief continued. "We want to establish a formal animal-assisted therapy program here at the hospital, and we'd like you and Spirit to be the cornerstone of that program. This would be a paid position, Daniel, involving not just patient visits, but also helping us develop protocols, train other handler dog teams, and expand the program across all departments." The offer left Daniel speechless. He'd come to the hospital as a volunteer, simply hoping to share Spirit's gift with those who needed it most. Now, he was being offered the chance to turn this passion into a career, to build something meaningful that could help countless patients and animals alike. I'm honored," Daniel finally managed, "but I need to make sure this is the right fit for Spirit too. His well-being comes first." The chief smiled warmly. "Of course. That's exactly why you're the person we want leading this program. Your priority has always been what's best for Spirit, and that approach has produced remarkable results." After discussing the details and taking a few days to consider, Daniel accepted the position. Within months, what had begun as occasional visits with the German Shepherd evolved into the hospital's first comprehensive animal-assisted therapy program, with Spirit as its pioneering member and ambassador. The program's growth brought new challenges. Spirit needed to be certified through a formal therapy dog organization, which meant additional training and assessment. Despite his remarkable intuition with patients, the certification process required demonstrating specific skills and responses to various stimuli and potential distractions in a hospital environment. "He needs to remain calm when equipment alarms go off," explained the certification specialist. "And he needs to be completely comfortable around wheelchairs, walkers, and people who move or behave unpredictably." Spirit approached this training with the same determination he'd shown in his physical rehabilitation. The same dog who once cowered at sudden movements now remained perfectly composed when surrounded by beeping machines, clattering carts, and the organized chaos of a busy hospital floor. When faced with a staged scenario, where someone accidentally dropped a metal tray nearby, Spirit merely glanced over before refocusing on his handler, A. A response that brought tears to Daniel's eyes as he remembered the terrified dog he'd found on that rainy roadside. "It's not just physical resilience," Dr. Phillips noted during one of Spirit's checkups. "It's emotional resilience. He's transformed his trauma into a unique form of empathy. That's incredibly rare." With formal certification complete, the program expanded to include regularly scheduled visits to multiple departments. The pediatric wing remained Spirit's specialty, but he also began working with adult patients recovering from strokes or traumatic injuries, where his own experience with physical adaptation made him an inspiration. Patients struggling with the frustration of relearning basic movements found motivation in watching Spirit navigate the world with confidence. "If he can do it, so can I," became a common refrain in the rehabilitation ward. The most unexpected impact came in the psychiatric unit. Initially, there had been hesitation about bringing therapy dogs into this sensitive environment. But when a young patient experiencing catatonia, a condition where the individual becomes unresponsive to their surroundings, showed the first signs of engagement, while Spirit rested his head gently in her lap, the psychiatric team became immediate advocates for the program. "There's something about him that reaches people when nothing else can," noted the psychiatric unit's director. "He appears to have an intuitive understanding of how to approach each patient, when to initiate contact, and when to simply be present." As the program grew, so did the demand for more therapy dogs. Daniel began developing protocols for identifying suitable rescue dogs with the right temperament for therapy work. With the hospital's support, he established connections with local shelters to evaluate potential candidates' dogs, who, like Spirit, might find their calling in helping others heal. Not every dog is suited for this work, Daniel explained to a group of volunteers during a training session. But many rescue dogs have an extraordinary capacity for empathy. Their own experiences of suffering and healing give them a unique connection with patients facing similar journeys. Spirit's fame spread beyond the hospital. Local news covered the story of the therapy dog, focusing on his remarkable journey from roadside rescue to healing ambassador. The story resonated deeply with viewers, leading to a flood of inquiries about animal-assisted therapy, and a notable increase in the adoption of special needs dogs from area shelters. People are beginning to understand that physical imperfections don't diminish an animal's capacity for connection and service, Stephanie observed. If anything, these differences often enhance their ability to relate to human suffering. Spirit's work at the hospital revealed another unexpected talent. He had a particular gift for detecting changes in patients before medical instruments could. In one remarkable instance, he became agitated and alerted hospital staff by pawing at the door of a pediatric patient's room nearly 15 minutes before the child's oxygen levels dropped to dangerous levels. "We can't explain it scientifically," admitted one of the pediatric doctors. "But it's happened too many times to be coincidence. He seems to sense physiological changes before our equipment can detect them." Researchers from the University Medical Center became interested in this phenomenon, proposing a study to document Spirit's apparent ability to detect certain medical events before their clinical onset. Daniel agreed, believing that understanding this ability could potentially save lives. "I've always known he was special," Daniel said, as he watched Spirit gently interact with a child undergoing chemotherapy. But seeing how his own journey through trauma and healing now serves as a bridge to others, it's beyond what I could have imagined when I found him that night. As word of the program spread, Daniel began receiving inquiries from other healthcare facilities interested in establishing similar initiatives. He started offering workshops and training sessions, sharing the protocols and best practices developed through their pioneering work at the hospital. One afternoon, after a particularly moving session with a group of trauma survivors, Spirit's veterinary behaviorist made an observation that perfectly captured his transformation. What's remarkable about Spirit isn't just that he overcame his own trauma. It's that he transformed it into a gift for others. That's the difference between merely surviving and truly healing. The hospital administration took notice of the program's success as well. Patient satisfaction scores increased in units with regular therapy dog visits. Recovery times showed modest but statistically significant improvements. Even staff morale and retention rates improved in departments where Spirit and the other therapy dogs now in the program made regular visits. "We knew animal-assisted therapy had benefits," the chief of pediatrics remarked during a board meeting. "But what Daniel and Spirit have built here has exceeded every expectation. They're not just providing moments of comfort, they're fundamentally changing how healing happens in this hospital." 2 years after Spirit's first hospital visit, his impact had grown far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The therapy dog program Daniel had built now included 15 handler dog teams, most featuring rescue dogs with their own stories of survival and transformation. But Spirit remained the heart and soul of the initiative, the living proof that what might appear broken can become something extraordinary. On a crisp autumn morning, Daniel and Spirit were invited to a special ceremony at the hospital. As they walked through the main entrance, the usual buzz of activity paused. Doctors, nurses, patients, and visitors stopped to acknowledge the German Shepherd, who moved with such confidence and purpose, you'd hardly notice his missing limb. Spirit had become something of a local celebrity. His story featured in medical journals focused on animal-assisted therapy, and even a short documentary about healing relationships between humans and animals. "Today, we're dedicating the new pediatric therapy wing," announced the hospital's director to the gathered crowd. "And we've decided to name it after the very special dog who helped us understand just how powerful the human-animal bond can be in healing." She gestured toward a covered plaque on the wall. When the cover was removed, Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. There it was. Spirit's Haven, where healing hearts find courage. Beside the name was a beautiful bronze paw print cast from Spirit's own front paw. 3 years ago, this dog was fighting for his life on an operating table in this very hospital, the director continued. Today, he's helped more than 300 patients find strength during their darkest moments. The Spirit Wing will ensure that animal-assisted therapy remains a cornerstone of our holistic approach to healing for generations to come. As Spirit sat calmly beside Daniel, seemingly understanding the significance of the moment, a small voice called out from the crowd, "Spirit!" The voice belonged to Emma, the first child Spirit had connected with at the hospital. Now 10 years old and in remission, she pushed through the crowd and knelt beside him. Spirit immediately recognized her, gently pressing his muzzle against her cheek in greeting. The crowd fell silent, witnessing the powerful reunion. "He remembers," Emma whispered to Daniel, her eyes shining. "I told you he would." That moment captured perfectly what made Spirit extraordinary. It wasn't just that he had overcome his own trauma and physical limitation. It was his remarkable capacity to form meaningful connections that endured, to remember those he had touched, and to continue offering his unique form of comfort and understanding. The ceremony marked the beginning of a new chapter. With the dedicated therapy wing, the program expanded to include research initiatives studying the measurable benefits of animal-assisted interventions across different patient populations. Spirit became the subject of several case studies, examining how animals with their own histories of trauma might be uniquely suited to connect with certain patients. What we're seeing with Spirit challenges everything we thought we knew about trauma, explained a neuropsychologist who had joined the research team. Conventionally, we view trauma as something to recover from, to put behind us. But Spirit suggests another possibility, that our wounds, when healed, might become a source of extraordinary connection and empathy. He doesn't just overcome his trauma, he transforms it into a gift. This perspective began to transform how the hospital approached not just animal therapy, but human recovery as well. Patients were encouraged to view their own challenges not merely as obstacles to overcome, but as experiences that might eventually give them unique insight and connection with others facing similar journeys. The ripple effects extended far beyond the hospital walls. News of the program's success inspired similar initiatives across the country. Daniel found himself fielding calls from hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and veterans facilities eager to establish their own programs. Spirit's story had become a blueprint for how rescue animals with special needs could become powerful agents of healing. And Spirit himself. At 5 years old, he had settled into his role with the serenity of one who has found his purpose. The frightened, broken dog from that rainy roadside had transformed into a calm, steady presence that could walk into the most chaotic environment and bring immediate peace. Children in the oncology ward called him their courage coach. Veterans with PTSD referred to him as their battle buddy. Parents of long-term patients credited him with bringing the first smiles they'd seen from their children in months. What's most remarkable, Daniel shared during an interview for a national news segment, is how Spirit seems to know exactly what each person needs. With some patients, he's playful and energetic. With others, he's completely still, just offering his presence. He reads emotional states more accurately than many humans can. The German Shepherd's ability to navigate his physical difference with such grace also made him a natural ambassador for the adoption of special needs animals. The local shelter reported a significant increase in the adoption of animals with disabilities following Spirit's rising profile in the community. People see Spirit and realize that a physical imperfection doesn't diminish an animal's capacity for connection and joy, explained the shelter director. If anything, these animals often have an extra measure of gratitude and resilience that makes them extraordinary companions. On the anniversary of Spirit's rescue, Daniel organized a special fundraiser called Second Chances that brought together rescue organizations, therapy dog programs, and the families whose lives had been touched by Spirit's journey. The event raised enough money to cover medical expenses for 20 special needs dogs awaiting adoption, and to fund a scholarship program for handlers interested in training rescue dogs for therapy work. During the event, Daniel watched as Spirit moved confidently through the crowd, greeting old friends and making new ones with his characteristic gentle dignity. Stephanie joined him, camera in hand as always, documenting this latest chapter in their extraordinary journey. "I keep thinking about that night in the rain," Daniel said quietly. "How close he came to being just another tragedy on that roadside. How many others like him never get their second chance?" But that's why we share his story," Stephanie replied. "Every person who hears it might become the one who stops for the next spirit." Take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to Eternal Bonds. Every subscription powers our mission to share these powerful stories of healing and transformation. Share this video with someone who needs inspiration today. What moment from Spirit's journey resonated with you most deeply? Was it his breakthrough on day 43, when he first ran with confidence? Or perhaps when he helped that traumatized child find her voice again? Share in the comments using the phrase, "Spirit taught me," followed by the lesson his story left with you. Your experiences and reflections might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if Spirit's story moved you, you won't want to miss our next video. It features another incredible journey of transformation. A dog who was found chained to an abandoned building for so long that no one thought he could ever trust again. What happened next challenges everything we think we know about the capacity for forgiveness in these remarkable beings we're blessed to call our companions.